This is a former skinny twerp's guide to bulking. When I started lifting weights about 10 years ago, I was 145 pounds. Now I'm up over 210, so I've put on over 65 pounds in the last decade. Here's a lot of the strategies that I use in order to be able to eat enough food and things I wish I knew earlier on in my lifting career that would have made this so much easier. My name is Elrod-Erickson. A lot of what I'm sharing in this video is based on personal experience, but I also coach powerlifting and strength training and own my own company, Premier Power and Performance. So these are also strategies I've used with clients and have helped them. If you ask your average gym goer some tips for bulking, they generally just say, just eat more food, man. It's that simple. And it's awesome if it's that simple for you because you have a big appetite, but personally, I don't. I have the appetite of a small bird. So if you can relate to that, then these are some strategies that should be able to help you eat enough calories while still feeling relatively comfortable rather than having to force feed yourself to the point of feeling sick every meal, because the reality is that's not sustainable for weeks or months or years on end, which is the time scale that we're looking at if you want to be able to put on serious amount of size in the long run. So we need strategies that will let you get the calories in without having to force feed too bad or too frequently. The first tip is drink some of your calories. Replace the water that you're already consuming with some other fluid that contains calories as well, because 99% of the ingredients of these is still water, so you're still getting hydrated, but you're getting some free calories that come along with it without having to add any more additional food or even fluid volume. It's the same as what you're already consuming before. It's just now, if you did this for, say, 3 drinks a day, a glass of juice, a glass of milk, and a sports drink, that's about 500 calories. So that alone would make the difference of 3,500 calories per week if you did that every day. And that would be the difference between maintenance and gaining a pound per week. So this tip alone should be able to help significantly in terms of bulking. As you can see here, milk, juice, sports drinks, shakes and smoothies, all of these things are great. I'll give you some specifics here as well. I really like Fairlife milk because it's processed, so it removes a lot of the lactose. It doesn't upset my stomach and it sits a little easier than a lot of milks. Plus it's extra high protein, but pretty much whatever you prefer is fine in terms of milk. You could do whole milk for extra calories, 2% fat free, whatever. When it comes to juice, there's tons of options. Try them and see what you like. Apple juice, orange juice, Naked Juice does these fruit blends, and they're pretty expensive if you buy the small little bottles that are 16 ounces, but if you buy the big one that's 64 and then you drink it over multiple days, then it's a lot more affordable. When it comes to sports drinks, it's like Gatorade, Powerade, things like that. Same thing, if you're price conscious, you can always buy Gatorade powder in a big tub, and then you add that to water and stir it up yourself. It's a lot cheaper than buying the bottles. And when it comes to shakes and smoothies, a lot of people will recommend adding peanut butter, protein powder, frozen fruit, things like that in a blender and blending it up. Personally, that one never really worked great for me. It was always a little too heavy. It just felt kind of like replacing a meal with a shake. It still sat in my stomach and took a lot of effort to drink or eat. But like milkshakes, if I'm out at a restaurant or getting fast food or something, or like thinner smoothies that are mostly just essentially fruit juice, things like that have always worked well for me. But again, it's just trial and error, seeing what works for you. But the general concept here is just drink some of your calories for the day rather than having to eat all of them. The second tip is leave some snacks lying around. We want this in a place that you're going to walk past multiple times per day. So maybe that's your computer desk, on the edge of the counter, by the door, because most people find it easier to eat more food if they snack throughout the day. It's just they don't remember to snack that often. So having a visual reminder that clues you in, hey, I should have a snack now, can really help with that. And having the food laying out in a spot that you walk past multiple times is really great for this, because just every time you walk by, grab a handful, eat it then and there, and then that adds up over the course of a day or the week. So some great foods for this would be like chocolate covered nuts, chocolate covered pretzels, swirl bread, the cinnamon sugar stuff from the grocery store, or just nuts or pretzels that aren't chocolate covered. Something that is fairly shelf stable, you enjoy eating it, so you're down to just grab a handful of it at any time and during the day. And it's not like super challenging to eat or like sits really heavy in the stomach, nothing like that. Tip number 3, it's a very similar to the core idea with drinking some of your calories. We're adding oil, butter, and sauces to some of your foods because, again, it doesn't really add much, if anything, to the total food volume or bulk, but it adds up in terms of calories here and there throughout the week. So you can add butter on your toast, shredded cheese on your eggs, oil on your ground beef and rice, mayo on a sandwich. If you made those 4 changes in a day, you could easily get a difference of maybe 400 more calories. And again, add that up over the course of a week. That's almost your entire surplus just by doing that, and you haven't even had to like eat any more food to a significant degree. Also, if you look at these graphics here, I think these were originally intended for people trying to be conscious during their weight loss, but we're essentially repurposing them for the opposite. Just a little drizzle, that like spoonful of olive oil is a whole 240 calories, which if you're trying to eat more, awesome. Start adding that to more of your meals. Or if you look at the various sauces and condiments in the right side picture, you'll see it doesn't actually take very much of these to get 100 calories, and 100 calories here and 100 calories there starts to really add up over the course of a week. So start adding sauces and oils and butter. Tip number 4, eat more dessert more frequently. You can have it at pretty much whatever meal you want, right? Like a lot of people associate dessert with only being at dinner, but there's no reason why that has to be the case. You can have dessert whenever you want, and then you can also start to increase the portion sizes of that as well. Quite simply, most people enjoy desserts. They can eat more dessert, even if they feel relatively full of their main course, their main meal. There's typically always room for ice cream or always room for some sweet treat. So dessert can be a way to not only eat more total food, but also it's generally pretty calorically dense, so also helps in terms of eating more. I go through a lot of ice cream personally. You can also buy a pie or a cake or whatever from the grocery store and then slice it up and freeze it if you're not going to be able to eat the whole thing within the few days that it's going to be good for. Plus, you can add ice cream on top of that pie or cake as you after you reheat it. If you're not one for sweet treats, or you're kind of worried about eating that much dessert, or maybe you just want something that's a little more like breakfast related than, adding ice cream on breakfast, you can always do something like yogurt with fruit instead. It's basically the same kind of deal, but maybe a little more nutritious. And then even candy's fine. The best part about candy is it tends to be a little more portable than some of these other things that we were talking about. So if you have to eat a meal on the go, grabbing some candy that you can take with you is a good way to still kind of check that box and get the additional calories. Tip number 5 is gradually increasing your portion sizes. Just like we progressively overload things in the gym and try and gradually do more and more weight, we can do the same thing when it comes to food. We can try and gradually eat a little bit more over the course of the time. So if you normally eat 3 eggs, 3 slices of toast, and 8 ounces of juice in the morning, it can be really easy to just get into a routine like Groundhog's Day, where you just do the same thing over and over and over for potentially even years on end. You just get in this routine where you always eat the same amount. It's important to realize that every once in a while, you can bump up the quantity that you're eating. So maybe you do 3 eggs, 3 slices of toast, and 8 ounces of juice. Try bumping that from 8 ounces of juice up to 12. Maybe you try bumping from 3 slices of toast to 4, from 3 eggs to 4, making these changes one at a time, just gradually increasing how much you're eating every few months. And if you look back a year or 2 ago, suddenly you're eating more food than you used to and getting more total calories, but you did it gradually over time. So it doesn't feel like a huge adjustment like if you tried doing all 3 of those things right at once. But again, the important thing is a lot of people just get in these routines and only eat the same amount of the foods that they always have and just do that over and over and over. So try and gradually increase. Tip number 6 is eat fast food. I think a lot of people kind of demonize and think that fast food is bad, but the reality is that's just for your average person. The problem with fast food is it's very calorically dense, and your average person is physically inactive. They're not really doing anything, and they're already fat. If we are very active lifters and athletes and we're trying to gain weight, then being calorically dense is a good thing, not a bad thing. So realize that this perception that fast food is evil is just a mismatch between needs and what it is. Whereas for us as athletes, it actually serves their needs pretty well. So fast food can be a really useful tool, especially because a lot of fast food is pretty tasty and it's really palatable. It's easy to eat a lot of, and that's intentional by design. They want you to buy more of their stuff. So again, may not be the best for our society or population as a whole, but if we're trying to eat more food, then it's a super useful tool. If you are buying a lot of fast food or getting it pretty regularly, multiple times per week, a great tip is be aware that most fast food places have their own app, and a lot of those apps have good discount codes and reward points that can start to add up and save you a lot of money in the long run. So be sure to check those out. A personal favorite of mine is getting a large pizza, and then I'll just eat that over the course of 2 or 3 days, and it provides multiple meals without having to go out and get something multiple times, or without having to really put any effort into prepping the food myself. So that's a great lazy option that provides multiple meals with little effort. Tip number 7 is consider eating either more or less distracted. A lot of us watch things on our phone or on our computer or TV as we eat, and for some people that's helpful, but for other people, when they're distracted, they're not eating as quickly as they would be otherwise, and therefore their meals get drawn out and really slow. And then since it's taking so long to eat, they start feeling full before they can finish all their food. So for some people, not being distracted and being more conscious while eating might be helpful so they can get more total food in. Whereas for other people, maybe they do want to be distracted because then they're not as aware when they start feeling full and they can keep eating for longer. So the big thing here is it's not one size fits all. It's just here's some options that you can experiment with, figure out what works for you. And it could even be something in between. Personally, I think I manage to eat the most if I start eating the meal conscious and present and just try and get a lot of food in pretty quick. And then as I start to feel pretty full, maybe I put something on and distract myself so I can keep eating for a little bit longer. And then number 8, the last tip here is try and analyze your weak points. This is the hardest of the tips to implement because it takes actually sitting down and thinking about things, but it is potentially the most useful if you are willing to put in that effort. So think about the days of the week and then all of your meals. Where is it that you're not eating as much food as you are at other times? It's going to be pretty hard to add extra food to the meals when you're already eating the most, but it's probably much easier to add food at times when you're not currently eating as much. So maybe that's you don't have any sort of snack before you train or after you train, or maybe you have a huge lunch and dinner, but you have a tiny breakfast. Look for the areas where you're not eating as much and aim to add food to those first, as opposed to the places where you are already eating a lot. Also, for a lot of people, this can be related to days of the week. Maybe on work days, they're not eating nearly as much as they do when they're not working. That's where you should look to improve and add more food first, as opposed to your off days when you're already eating a lot more food. So fix your weak points. That will help a lot. And then the very last thing is if you are serious about trying to eat more food, or this is something that you've struggled with for a while and you want more tips than this video is able to provide, something you could consider is reaching out to a sports dietitian and trying to work with them. Notice I specified a sports dietitian, not just a nutritionist, because nutritionists is something that you can just get certified in by taking a simple little course. A dietitian is like an actual degree and requires a little more actual education than just getting a nutritional certification. Plus, we want a sports dietitian, not just a regular dietitian, because we want someone that actually works with athletes and preferably also does some sort of training or exercise themselves, so that they're used to the nutritional demands of an actual athlete and an actual person that trains rather than just your regular person. Because we do frankly have different demands. If you need to eat 4,500 calories a day to gain weight, that's very different than your average person's experience of trying to eat 1,800 calories a day to maintain their average sedentary lifestyle. Plus, we're looking for someone that has genuine good advice as opposed to being some weird crunchy granola quack who's trying to push their unsupported opinions of food on you. So look for a real sports dietitian as opposed to just someone with a nutritional certification. like this photo here is the guy that I spoke to a few years ago. He was the sports dietitian for the University of Alabama in Birmingham, and he does CrossFit. So he was able to provide actually useful advice for eating more food, and was really helpful in my process of trying to gradually gain weight. So that's always an option if you need more help in the future. I appreciate you watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Here's my Instagram and my email, and you can visit liftpremier.com for more information about my coaching services or other free resources like my sumo deadlift guide and my guide to training with limited time in the gym.